everyone. My name is Jamie Richard. I live in Seattle, Washington, and I am information security engineer for Seattle Public Schools. So before I was doing what I'm doing now with Seattle Public Schools, for the most part, I was a pastor. Most immediately, a transitional pastor. There's a couple reasons I chose cybersecurity. I reached a point in that current work where the next place, the next opportunity as a transitional pastor would require me to work out of town. I chose it, one, because I didn't want to relocate, and two, I chose cybersecurity specifically because Seattle is a pretty mature coding market that kind of intimidated me. And so when I began to look at schools for coding, I noticed that some of the same schools also offered a cybersecurity option. And that's when I found Evolve, and I was like, oh, that's kind of up and coming. That's not as mature here in Seattle. It doesn't maybe intimidate me as much. Of course, now I've learned it's a little bit different. I mean, it's very intimidating, but it wasn't at the time. So I chose them for those two reasons. My responsibilities and kind of daily, weekly work at Seattle Public Schools is, I mean, to me, again, I haven't had any other work in this field, but from what I hear, is breathtakingly broad. I'm often the first responder for like Office 365 Defender alerts and remediations. It could be a malicious link. It's clicked, I'm notified. Could be a ransomware link activity group alert. I have to investigate that. Could be isolating a device that clicked on that link or was associated in that ransomware activity. I could be forcing a password reset on a user account. Then I could move over in the same day to some of our log aggregator and automated response tools in Sentinel to be working on automating some of those responses to some of those incidents. I could then flip over to reviewing a digital tools request for data privacy issues, and could be working on a data privacy agreement with a vendor's lawyer to ensure that our data privacy concerns are met, those kind of things. Like then I could bump over to managing our content filter. As you can imagine, for schools and kids, there's a great deal of content we don't want our customers, right, to be seen. And so there's custom profiles that we have in place for students. Some students need restricted internet. Some students have an after-school club that they're part of. And so we have a lot of custom filter policies that I mostly manage. Then I could be jumping on some work that's the result of our vulnerability scanning that pretty much we use what we used in Evolve. We used Nessus Pro. And so for the past 6 months, I've been managing kind of that process where I configure the scans that happen, regularly. And then I work with the various teams to get the critical vulnerabilities remediated. And so I'll have to work with our network operations team, our systems operations team to get those remediated. Then there's special projects, when there's a compromised user account. I'll have to go look and see what did, during that time we think it was compromised, what did the actor touch? We get some requests by HR. They'll want to know what they think is a delinquent employee, what he was doing or not doing during the time. We have a lot of apps that are joined in our Azure environment, and I'll have to pull sign-in logs for that account and then ship them off to HR to show what was the person doing during that time that they said they were working and they really weren't. I could then jump on a chain of custody where I have to go and meet the Seattle police officer and go into our vault and our safe and pull out a device that is part of an investigation, and I have to document, the chain of custody for that evidence. It's very, very, very broad. It's part of the gift for me, because I don't have to know one area, really, really deeply, but I get to know a lot of areas pretty well. How did my journey go? How did it start? How did I go from pastor to an information security engineer? I'm going to summarize it, and then I can dig in a little bit further, but I would just say two things. I prayed, and then I did everything that Evolve Security Academy told me to do.
That's awesome.
So obviously the first one doesn't need a whole lot of explanation, but I did pray for a champion, someone who would trust me and then give me opportunity, and that's part of my story, and I can share about that a little bit more. But in terms of doing everything that Evolve Security Academy, I just was in a place where I had to trust someone that had experience doing it. So, from completing my coursework on things that, seemed small and insignificant, I just did it. Just did the coursework, took the exam, got the Security Plus, certification, joined Martin's job support group, got my LinkedIn profile updated, followed their, recommendations, started attending online events. This is during COVID, right? So most of the networking is online. You have a gazillion now new opportunities now, but and I started connecting with people. My practice was to go to online events and then try to make a personal request to the panelists and ask to connect with them on LinkedIn, and just tell them, hey, I appreciate what you shared. Can we connect? That played into it. I'll come back to it in a second. But the other thing that was part of my journey was I just started where I was. So I went to my previous one of my previous employers, and I said, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm doing this. I'm doing information security. Is there anything I can do, to help you? And they were starting a new project. They were standing up a third-party risk compliance effort using KnowBe4's governance, risk and compliance tool. And it's like, we could need help with, we could use some help with this. So I started reaching out to their vendors and asking them to complete a security self-assessment questionnaire. Then I would take that information and put it in their tool, and that was used to update their risk profile, the risk registry. And so that was just very little money, if you will, or whatever. It was just doing what I could. It wasn't something I was really interested in doing long term, but it's what I was there. Going back to the webinar thing, one webinar I went to was put on by a security company out here in the Pacific Northwest called Critical Insight. And the one of the panelists was the information security manager, or CISO, at Seattle Public School. And she was great, and she had a lot of great things to say. And I reached out to her on LinkedIn and asked to connect. And within a day, she responded and said, I see you're new to cybersecurity from your profile. Would you mind doing a peer review on a tool that I developed using NIST, one of the NIST publications that other public schools can use to, do a self-assessment on their security stance. I was like, you want me to review? But that's just kind of gal she was, and she just wanted input. And so, having been through some of the NIST, we covered some of the NIST stuff in boot camp, and I was like, I remember that. So I went and reviewed that, and then made up a cybersecurity. Yeah, the cybersecurity framework, the CS.
We did it in the boot camp. Yes,
absolutely. And so I kind of took her her tool and put it side by side and made a spreadsheet and kind of compared, the official publication with what she had produced, and said, this is represented and this is not, and here's maybe with some ways you can improve it, and sent it off, and she liked it. And I was really surprised. I was really scared. I thought, well, what do I have to lose, right?
Yeah.
If I'm gonna be critical. But she liked it, and she said, we need someone to help do some cloud-based forensic work. We're having a lot of kids doing stuff they shouldn't be doing on Microsoft Teams and so forth during COVID. It's an hourly thing. Would you want to do some work with us? I said, of course. And then that was about 2 or 3 months into that, she said, we have an FTE, a full-time job, level 1 engineer job opening, and loved for you to apply. Interviewed, and then they hired me. I would weigh out. So, how quickly do you need to get a job in cybersecurity? I mean, if that's the goal, right? And so if you have, the discipline and the skill and time and space to do things on your own, great, go do it. And if you don't need, but if you need, you need to turn this ship more quickly, I don't know what it costs now, but you might want to consider a higher investment of time and concentration of money, like a boot camp, right? That then could yield something in a quicker return, potentially. That's what I would say, because the intensity and what's covered and the breadth in a boot camp, it's just, for someone who's not have experience, it makes sense. I mean, just to get that foundation in that amount of time for that investment. So one, you ought to consider a boot camp. That would be one thing I would say. I would also say, try things that you think are uncomfortable. I took y'all's suggestion, and during the job search process, try to have a project that you're tangibly working on that you can talk about, right? That you can say you're doing. Now, obviously, I could also say I was doing this governance, risk, and compliance work with the third-party risk, with this other company. So, but that didn't really translate too much. So I was trying to stand up, a small little network here at the house. I had bought a little firewall appliance. I had bought a router. I had bought, some Ethernet cables, and I was close to getting it all working, and wanted to do the detection rules, and but I shared that in my interview, right? They thought that was cool, right? That I was just trying. I don't have that networking background, and so I got a Raspberry Pi, right? They're cheap, and I was just trying. I was just trying those things. And it gives you something to talk about, and it shows, the initiative. And then the third, I would just say, network. And I don't mean on the technology side. I mean on the personal side. Your greatest capital will be the people you know. I was fortunate. I think God answered my prayers to give me a champion, someone who trusted me, who was interested in me. But again, that happened because I both prayed and reached out. I mean, I was trying to reach out and make connections with people. So you will have to stretch yourself. I mean, here you are, someone who doesn't know much, and you're trying to talk to someone who knows a lot. You're just trying to learn, and that's a great approach, to say, I'm just getting into the industry, and I'm trying to learn as much as I can. I appreciate what you said. Maybe a follow-up question. Can we connect more? Can I speak more with you about XYZ or whatever? People that are in the industry and have been in there for a while, they really like it. It's interesting in them, right? And they want to talk about it, and they want to share their knowledge about it.
And most people want to help others,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So
Well, because they learn that if if we're not all working together on it,
Mhm.
if they get ransomed, then we could too. So we need you, strong too, right? We need them strong, and we need this district attorney. So once they get to that place of knowing what it's going to take to be resilient, then they want everyone to know what to do. They don't want to. They
Yeah.
don't want to hoard their ideas, or they want everyone to know.